Don't let the scruffy cap fool you. Beneath it hides a mind sharper than most Wall Street sharks. Meet Bernard, a young black shoeshine boy with grit far beyond his years. But he doesn't just choose any street corner. No, he stations his tiny stall right outside a bustling bank. His clients, wealthy white businessmen, the money he earns from polishing shoes doesn't interest him. He takes his time not to perfect the shine, but to eavesdrop. He listens closely to their whispered financial strategies, absorbing every word. And once they walk away, he quickly jots down everything in a worn-out notebook. He isn't chasing tips, he's chasing knowledge. Because even as a boy, he knows what he truly wants, to become a banker. It's Texas, 1939. A time and place where black ambition is smothered by brutal racism. His father, worn and tired, tells him that such a dream is impossible. But Bernard's eyes don't flicker. They burn with quiet defiance. 15 years later, that same boy, now a man, arrives in Los Angeles, holding his wife Eunice's hand with their children in tow. The air here feels different. The racism still lingers, but it's not as suffocating. Bernard sees hope, a crack in the wall. They squeeze into a shabby storage room behind a relative's house, barely livable. But to Eunice, he makes a promise. We won't be here long. He dives into real estate, combing through neighborhoods, hunting for listings, and through razor-sharp observation, he sees a pattern others ignore. Black neighborhoods are packed to the brim, while white areas have vacant homes gathering dust. The need is there, the money is there, but no one's bridging the gap. Bernard sees what no one else does, a gold mine wrapped in segregation. One day, he spots a rundown white-owned apartment, its doorway swallowed by weeds. Others see decay. He sees potential. It borders the black community. Location is everything. He knocks on the owner's door with a bold offer. You've only rented out half the place. Sell it to me. I'll pay $30,000 up front and another $5,000 once I fill every room. The owner is intrigued. He respects Bernard's sharp pitch, but he's also cautious. He declines. Bernard nods, masking his disappointment with grace. He turns to leave, but then something catches his eye. A subtle glimmer on the wall. He pauses, and his gaze falls on the owner's calendar. On that calendar, Bernard spots something crucial, the logo of a local bank and the manager's name. Instantly, a plan clicks into place. He politely thanks the owner and heads straight for the mall. Bang. Inside, he spots the manager's office, but the secretary, cold and clearly biased, refuses to even let him in. Still, Bernard doesn't leave. He waits for hours until the manager finally emerges. Without hesitation, Bernard steps forward, calmly introduces himself, and says he knows one of the manager's VIP clients. He pitches his idea, explaining how the loan will help that client too. But the manager doesn't even consider it, just flat out rejects him. Later that night, Bernard's phone rings. It's the property owner. His voice is serious. Did you use my name to get a loan? Bernard's heart races. He has no choice but to admit it and apologize. But instead of scolding him, the owner chuckles. He says he respects Bernard's tenacity, that fire in him that refuses to give up. And with that, he offers something Bernard didn't expect. He agrees to guarantee the loan. It's the first loan Bernard has ever received, and he uses it to buy the building. Days later, an elderly white woman returns home from shopping. She stops in her tracks when she sees a black man near her door. Her tone is sharp, suspicious. "What are you doing here?" Bernard answers without flinching. "Renovating the apartment." Her face twists with disgust. "Workers like you should be careful," she sneers. But Bernard doesn't flinch. He simply says, "Don't worry, I own this building and I'll take care of it." She stares at him, stunned, then storms inside. Moments later, the police arrive. The officers inform Bernard that someone, clearly the old lady, reported him for impersonating the property owner. Calmly, Bernard pulls a folded paper from his jacket, a copy of the ownership certificate. He'd anticipated trouble and came prepared. The officers scan the document, then exchange glances. With nothing left to say, they retreat awkwardly and drive off. That night, Bernard walks back to the building. The same old woman sees him and immediately snaps, "Leave! This isn't the time for construction." Bernard looks her in the eyes, steady and unshaken. "I'm not a worker," he replies. "I'm the owner now." Her jaw drops, and she storms off in disbelief. A few days later, she moves out, unable to accept sharing the space with a black landlord. But as soon as she's gone, Bernard rents the unit to a kind black woman. Just like he predicted, the demand in the black community is overwhelming. One by one, the apartments fill. The building is alive again, and Bernard delivers the promised follow-up payment to the original owner, just like he said he would. The former owner, deeply impressed by Bernard's drive, proposes a partnership. Bernard handles property selection and calculates the returns, while the old man manages negotiations and signs deals. Their plan is simple but strategic. Front the deals so white clients won't realize they're doing business with a black man. Profits will be split evenly. Bernard agrees without hesitation. Their partnership runs like clockwork. Money flows fast. Bernard quickly upgrades from a cramped apartment to a spacious mansion, giving his family the comfort they deserve. This is Bernard's brilliance. When faced with racism, he doesn't lash out. He doesn't play by their rules. He builds his own, rooted in logic, strategy, and profit. But even the smartest plans can be upended. Years pass, and the aging owner suddenly dies. His share of the business is passed on to his widow, a woman dripping with prejudice. She refuses to work with Bernard, scoffing at the very idea. Instead, she offers to buy out his shares at a pitiful price. Take it or face a lawsuit. And in that time, when courts favored white voices, who do you think the judge would believe? But Bernard won't bow to injustice. He chooses to fight. He knows he needs proof of his business arrangement with the late owner. The bank manager could be the key. But when he reaches out, the man, now allied with the widow, avoids him completely. Bernard stands alone inside the bank, his heart heavy. The pristine floors and polished counters hide the venom of silent discrimination. No matter how successful he becomes, his skin is still their excuse to deny him. But in that moment of despair, an idea begins to form. A radical idea. There are 4 major banks inside that very building, and not one of them will serve him. Fine. If they won't open their doors, he'll buy the building that holds their keys. Let's see them slam the door now. Bernard seeks out Joe, one of the few black real estate developers in LA, and shares his plan. Joe thinks he's lost it. The land under that bank is some of the most expensive in the city, and no black man has ever bought property in downtown Los Angeles. But as they talk, Joe sees it. Bernard isn't fantasizing. He's calculating, strategic, clear-headed, because once Bernard owns the building, every bank inside will have no choice but to serve him. Now that he owns the building, the banks can't refuse Bernard anymore. They're forced to offer him loans and even leak real estate trends to stay in his favor. Suddenly, his business accelerates. Joe is stunned, but the more he thinks about it, the more it makes sense. Even with all his wealth, he still answers to white institutions. But if they can flip the script, control the land under their feet, they can turn the system inside out. There's just one problem. They still can't sign deals directly with white clients. They need a front, someone white, someone trustworthy. Bernard already knows who. Matt, the guy who's been helping with renovations. He's honest, ambitious, a little green, but full of potential. So Bernard and Joe begin to train him from scratch. Everything from golf swings to business etiquette, from mindset to math, Matt dives in. Before long, Matt is confidently swinging clubs and calculating property values mid-game, like a rising real estate prodigy. Then, at a golf club, during a meeting subtly orchestrated by Joe, Matt crosses paths with the very man who owns the bank building. The chat flows naturally. The owner warms up to him. Matt gets an invitation to discuss a possible sale, but he's nervous. He's never done a deal this big before. Bernard steps in. First, he analyzes the building from the outside, counting lights at night to estimate which offices are vacant. Then, he calculates the property's value using its yearly revenue and expenses. He prepares every figure Matt might need and drills them into him like a coach before a championship. When the big meeting arrives, the owner tries to talk circles, throwing out inflated numbers and polished sales talk, but Matt calmly counters with facts. Every time the owner bluffs, Matt replies with precise figures, catching him off guard. Even the accountant beside him is stunned. They're convinced they're facing a math genius. By the end of the negotiation, Bernard, through Matt, secures the entire property. Originally listed at over $2.4 million, they closed the deal for just $156 million. And from that moment on, the tables turn. Whenever Bernard enters the building, bank presidents rise to greet him. The same low-level manager who once brushed him off now looks on in disbelief. With the banks finally behind them, Bernard and Joe's empire expands at lightning speed. They crush the old zoning laws that once divided black and white communities. In Los Angeles, young, brilliant black professionals begin moving into neighborhoods they were once barred from, and soon, Bernard and Joe are invited to meet the Vice President of the United States. Years pass. In 1963, Bernard returns to Texas with his family to visit his aging father, Britton. After a warm dinner together, Britton looks his son in the eye and for the first time tells him how proud he is. The next morning, Bernard takes a walk through the town with his son. They laugh, they talk, until suddenly, Bernard stops. They're standing outside the same bank where he once shined shoes as a child. Back then, this town was drowning in racism. Some say it still is. Just then, they spot a boy hunched over, polishing shoes. It's like looking into a mirror of the past, except this boy only accepts white customers. That moment stings. It shakes Bernard to his core. The system hasn't changed, and if he doesn't do something now, maybe it never will. That night, he makes a quiet vow. He will bring better housing, better lives to the black families of his hometown. The very next day, Bernard visits Joe. He tells him they need to buy a bank, not just any bank, the mainland Bank of Texas. Joe is stunned. Texas? He says, you know what that place is like, but Bernard lays out his plan, calmly and clearly. The numbers make sense, the mission even more so. Slowly, Joe nods. He's in. Once again, they bring Matt into the fold, their trusted white face in a racist world. Together, they sit down with the bank's owners, Robert Florence Sr. and Jr. The numbers are presented. Florence Jr. is skeptical, but his father is swayed. In the end, they agree to sell. And just like that, the mainland bank becomes theirs. Bernard wastes no time. He opens the doors to the black community, offering fair loans, real housing, and a shot at a better future. For a while, it all works beautifully, but then trouble stirs. Florence Jr. starts digging through the bank's records, suspicious of the surge in approved loans. One day, he tails Matt and watches him meet up with Bernard and Joe. He storms up furious and slams down a letter. It's from the U.S. Treasury Department. They've scheduled an audit in 30 days. As Florence Jr. walks away, cold and confident, the three partners stand in silence, weighing what's next. Matt breaks it first, offering a bold idea. He suggests they buy another bank and quietly transfer every risky loan from mainland to the new institution. They sit down to discuss their next bold move, the purchase of the Bank of Marlin. Bernard raises the real concern. Who's going to run day-to-day operations? Without hesitation, Matt throws his name in. He wants to lead it. Bernard hesitates. He doesn't say no, but something in his gut feels off. Eventually, they strike a compromise. Matt gets the role, but Eunice will quietly keep an eye on him. And just like that, Matt is handed his dream, his own bank. The very next morning, he meets a lawyer and starts signing loan contracts with quiet confidence. On cue, things accelerate. But then, a call from Florence Jr. hits Matt like a cold slap. Clients are demanding to withdraw all their money from mainland, and it doesn't stop there. A federal bank examiner shows up at Marlin. Tension spikes. To get close without suspicion, Bernard dresses like a janitor, hoping to stay under the radar during the audit. But even that isn't enough. The examiner spots something. Multiple loans with serious flaws. Bernard can't believe it. These approvals are absurd. How did this happen? And then, the truth unravels. It was Florence Jr. all along. When Matt rushed into action, he cut corners. He hired a lawyer Florence recommended. Through that back door, Florence quietly planted those toxic loans into the system. Sometime later, Bernard and Joe sit Matt down. Their voices are calm but firm. The logical play now is to walk away from Marlin, but Matt refuses. He's too far in. Desperate to save his bank, he makes a move without telling them. The next day, Joe finds out. With Bernard, he storms into mainland. Tension explodes as they confront Matt, while Florence lurks nearby, watching with a smug grin. Bernard demands the ledgers, but it's already too late. Federal examiners are pulling the license. Mainland is done. And just as they leave the building, FBI agents close in. Bernard and Joe are arrested on the spot. Bernard tries to stay strong, but inside, he knows. It's hopeless. He's caught in something far bigger now. Later, the two partners sit with their lawyer. The news is grim. Their case is being entangled in the country's growing racial unrest. Meanwhile, in a quiet room, Matt meets with Senator Memlen. The offer is clear. Testify against Bernard and Joe and walk free. That night, haunted by the choice in front of him, Matt picks up the phone and makes the call. Matt takes the deal. He follows Melen's advice and testifies against Bernard and Joe during the Senate hearing the very next day. That afternoon, Bernard himself is summoned. He sits across from the senator, listens carefully, and is offered a cold choice. Take immunity and back Matt's statement, or speak his truth and face prison. Bernard looks him dead in the eye and chooses to speak from the heart. He talks about the weight of racism in America, the invisible chains, the walls no one sees but everyone feels. Not long after, everything crashes. Bernard and Joe's fortunes are wiped out. The hearing ends and the sentence follows. Both men are sent to federal prison. Florence Jr., watching from the shadows, steps forward and buys the mainland bank for pennies compared to what Bernard and Joe once paid. As for Matt Steiner, he walks away without a single charge. Years pass. Bernard and Joe are finally released, and strangely they look peaceful, even cheerful. Eunice can't understand it. How can they smile after losing everything? But Joe just grins and then drops the surprise. They each own property, side by side, in the Bahamas. Eunice is stunned. How? She asks. How is that even possible? That's when Bernard tells her the truth. The night before Matt's testimony, the man he called wasn't a lawyer. It was Bernard. He confessed. He told Bernard everything about the senator, about the deal, and apologized. In return, Bernard didn't ask for revenge. He asked for a favor, one small move: before the government could freeze their assets. The story ends not with prison bars or broken dreams, but with legacy. Bernard and Joe's properties, the E, ones they once fought for in Los Angeles, became a cornerstone in the fight against housing discrimination. And as for the two friends, they still wake up to ocean views in neighboring mansions in the Bahamas.